Welcome back, everybody. I am here with my friend Joe Enders and our friend, the one and only Jesse Romero. As you all may know, Jesse is an ex-fighter, an ex-boxer, and he is here to talk with us today about the manly art of self-defense, the manly art of fisticuffs, and why it's needed in the world today, particularly for conservatives, particularly for Christians. Guys, just to start us out, I look around at church. I see a lot of faithful guys out there that would be able to quote Aquinas off the top of their head. They might be able to throw the Summa at you. But what they're not able to do necessarily is to defend themselves and their families. So they're being spiritual warriors, but they're not being temporal, physical warriors. And the problem is that the spiritual combat that's taking place on earth is taking place in the realm of form and matter, spirit and body. So it's not good enough, is it, to just be spiritual warriors? We have to also be physical warriors. That's what we're called to as men.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that I've noticed about a lot of these, younger men, specifically in like my generation and younger. I mean, even you, Dave, are just like a little bit older than a lot of these people. Because I mean, even while you were in high school and stuff, you were able to go out and get into a fight, and you wouldn't wind up behind bars. About the time I was growing up is when this started to change. So if you were to get into a fight, even if you were to go and defend yourself if somebody were to attack you, what would wind up happening is like you would both be leaving in a cop car, and you'd both be having to figure this whole thing out in court. I mean, I know when you were younger, Jesse, it was more like a back in the day thing. If it happened, it happened, and then whoever did something wrong got a good scolding.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I just turned 60 years old a few weeks ago, and dueling when I was young, when people would duel, they would basically shake hands after somebody just smashed the other person, and they became lifelong friends. I mean, there was something honorable about two men squaring off, even in the streets, no weapons, just mano a mano, and just kind of settling their differences, using their lower faculties, and they would become best of friends after that. But self-defense is part of Catholic teaching. It's in the Catechism, paragraph 2263, if anybody wants to read up on it. I grew up in Southern California. I grew up in a barrio, Hispanic community, a lot of gangs where I was at in Southern California, a lot of pockets of black gangs when I was growing up. Born in 61, teenager in the 70s, young adult in the 80s. There was a lot of tension between blacks and Latinos in Southern California. And so very early on, I just gravitated towards the understanding that I should probably take some sort of self-defense. At the age of 10 or 11, my father enrolled me in Tang Soo Do Korean karate. There was a guy named Chuck Norris. He had a school in North. Nobody knew who Chuck Norris was in the 70s. I said, Dad, that's the school I want to go to. Sure, son. If that's what's going to keep you out of the streets, because I was already starting to be a street rat at the age of 10. And my dad and my brothers and my sister, my dad said, I better do something with these four boys. I better temper their appetites. So he took us to watch Enter the Dragon. You probably remember that movie, Bruce Lee. Enter the Dragon.
Yep. Bruce Lee,
with a bunch of cousins. We were in a station wagon, my father, my uncle. We went to go watch Bruce Lee in downtown Los Angeles, Broadway. I walked out of there. I said, Dad, I know what I want to do. I don't want to do football. I don't want to do basketball. I don't want to do baseball. I want to do karate. I want to do martial arts. And my dad he figured, okay, there's a rough neighborhood. I got four boys and stuff. Let me put these guys in martial arts. We went to Northridge, California. Once again, we don't know who this guy was. Chuck Norris, Tang Soo Do Korean Karate Studio. That's where we enrolled back in I was 11 years old, so it was like around 1970, 1971.
Was it just a coincidence that he is tied in with Bruce Lee? Because obviously Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee were friends. So did you just happen to see Enter the Dragon and pick like Bruce Lee's like friends, dojo to go into?
I didn't even know who Chuck Norris was at the time. But he at that time he owned like about 24 karate studios around Southern California. And then when I walked in there, I mean, he was in there. You know, he had a bunch of his instructors all over California that ran his studios. He would just go in there, just, you know, basically make payroll and collect the money. But Saul was trained by his black belts, and I did martial arts probably actively from about the age of 11 to about the age of 33, the age that Christ died and rose again from the dead. And I was also involved in boxing as well. I also started taking a boxing at about the age of 18, 19, Western boxing, just kind of mixed it in with the martial arts. And again, I think it's just compatible with the Catholic faith. One of the things that I look at a lot of my old magazines from the Knights of Columbus, what the Knights used to do to try to build bond during wartime, they would get the men from the 4 branches of the service in these big Navy ships, and they would have what's called smokers. They just say, hey, give me somebody for the Navy, put on these gloves. Hey, give me somebody for the Army, put on these gloves. And they throw them in the middle, and they would just slug it out for 2 minutes till somebody just dropped. Okay, next person. Those are called smokers. And it was the Knights of Columbus that were huge. This would build camaraderie during wartime amongst all 4 branches of the service.
What's happened, Jesse? What happened? Why aren't men doing this stuff anymore? It's just that's the type of thing that gets me excited. That gets me going. That makes me want to. I wish I was there then, man. Throw on some boxing gloves. Put me up against that other guy. Let's have some fun.
We fought.
Yes.
Fought in the park with boxing gloves on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, me and Dave Gordo, we were punching each other in the face for like 2 hours one time because we wanted to do something fun. Where are these guys? I mean, I would never even think of the Knights of Columbus doing today. I'd be thinking more about attending their fish fry.
There's that, and go ahead, Jesse.
No, you're right. That was old time Catholicism. I've even seen a lot of old articles from the Knights of Columbus. They're the ones that was set up at the CYO clubs, Catholic youth organizations. They would set up boxing programs. That's like, for example, I heard Mark Wahlberg say, he's got a boxing background and he was a youngster. He says that he started off in a CYO club run by Catholic priests. So that was something common, before the council, probably a little bit after Vatican II. It's again, I don't think it's a coincidence that you'll find all these metaphors that St. Paul uses, fight the good fight of faith, run to win. I punch the air, but I'm not shadow boxing. He uses all these metaphors of sports, of self-defense, put on the armor of God, and of basically just somebody who lives a well-disciplined life. The New Testament is a book written really for men.
Yeah, well, you have to discipline the body in order to discipline the soul. And that's really, really Catholic to think, right? That's why we fast. That's why we, some of the old religious would use corporal punishment on themselves. It's really important. That's why your kids, when they're out of line, you spank them. And, it's cuck beta parents that will not, and their kids run amok. You have to discipline the body to discipline the soul because we're a composite of matter and form. There's that nexus there. And people don't understand that. And for men, knowing to fight, being able to get yourself out there and be like, I might get hit in the face and might hurt. It might, I might get bowled over. Somebody might spark me out. Being able to grapple with that and overcome that initial fear is a really important component of manhood. And you did that in the ring, Jesse. See, that's the thing. To get in there and to know that somebody else is coming at you and they're going to try and knock you out. Like their goal is to knock you out. Obviously, in amateurs you score points and there are fewer knockouts and whatnot. But people are coming and they're not going to turn their back on you. You're not going to belt them a good one. They're going to run away. They're coming at you and you have to square up and stare them down and you have to look alive. Well, fists are flying at your face and there's something to that. Growing up, did that put some hair on your chest?
Absolutely. That gave me the ability just to basically conquer my fears, because I'll be honest with you, once you step into the ring and you got all these people around you and you're stepping in with a guy that's highly trained and highly motivated to take your head off, and again, somebody who's been putting in the work like you are, and nobody's around, there's no weapons, it's just you and him, there's something beautiful about that. There's something noble. There's something chivalrous about that. And I can tell you that did give me a jolt of confidence. People tell me, Jess, you preach with a lot of confidence. I really do think it's because I did have so many fights in the ring. I'm used to confrontation. I'm used to mastering my fears. Just superimposing my intellect and my will over my fears, because you have to do that. When right before you're going to fight, you go to the weigh-ins. You guys are staring each other down. The psychological fight already starts. He's looking at you. You're looking at him, and you say in your mind, "I can't let this guy break me. I can't let this guy break me." He gets in the scale. You get in the scale. You're watching him warm up. He's watching you warm up. Before you even step in the ring, men, there's deep psychological warfare, and I think it was just doing that for 10 years that gave me the ability to be bold and confident when I preach and share the Catholic faith. And people say, they go, it's very noticeable the way you project the message. You have a lot of confidence. And where does it come from? I say again, faith works upon nature. And the fact is, my nature, because for so long, I when I wasn't competing, then I went into coaching. I went into coaching like 10 years after I stopped competing. And so it's just part of my DNA at this point. But again, I think it's completely consistent with the Catholic faith. It's what we would call chivalry and courage, and something that you see, for example, David, Moses. These are men that had to go blows with people. Caleb, Joshua. And you know what? You know where they're at right now? They're in heaven. They're called saints. Why? God used them in all their brokenness, with all their imperfections and defects, but God knew that they had a whole lot of testosterone, and God just channeled it in the right direction. And so, again, God is not calling all of us to be monks. God is not calling us all to be quietists. We have to, again, some of us are called as David, Moses, Joshua, Caleb. Some of us are called to assert ourselves. And I just, that's why we just had, I rallied a big old Catholic prayer rally / protest against the Temple of Satan here in Scottsdale. And it just came quite natural to me, the confrontation like that, because this is the enemy. This is the avowed enemy of Jesus Christ and the Catholic Church. And so people are saying, aren't you scared? These are the Temple of Satan. They're going to be. I said, man, they should be afraid of us. I said, I got Jesus in me. I'm going to stand in grace. I got my rosary. Man, they're going to be afraid of us. What do you mean I'm afraid of them? You're giving them too much respect.
It's cool too, because you can see it. There's this, the entirety of the spiritual battle that we're all fighting in can be, it can be analogized, or whatever the word would be for that. It can be used as an analogy for an actual fist fight that you're going to be having with somebody. You have to be able to look the enemy in the face. You have to be able to say, I don't care what you're going to throw at me, you're dead. And that's it. You know what I mean? You are dead. You have to be just as relentless as your enemies are when you're going at them. And a lot of Catholics these days seem like they don't understand it. And I do personally, like deep down in my heart, believe it's because they haven't been in enough fights. And it's that simple. They haven't learned how to fight. They don't know how to defend themselves. So their first instinct when they're going into this world, going into the spiritual thing, is to kind of recoil whenever they're confronted with any type of violence that could wind up harming them or harming somebody next to them. Well, it's like, well, look, if somebody's going to harm somebody next to you, your first thought shouldn't be, how do I get out of this? It should be, how do I stop this person?
Sure. How many of us have watched videos of like Antifa and BLM like doing violence against people at a peaceful protest? People like right-wingers are assembled and they're chilling out, they're having a peaceful protest, they're marching against something, and then like Antifa shows up and you see all of the guys on the right just kind of like cowering or sitting there quietly like they don't know what to do, and like old women are getting like pushed down in front of them, and it's like, dude,
Yep.
Will you please? What is that? And it's because they've grown up in a church that's been filled with prelates that are not necessarily models of masculine virtue, that are very, many of them very effeminate and lispy themselves. And so they're not seeing that lived out in role models, and they think that piety means being essentially doormats. It means essentially just being like a string bean that's 92 pounds that can't bench press the bar, but that like when somebody comes and bowls over an old lady in front of them, they have to like turn the other cheek. And that's not Christian. That's not
even what they mean. That's not even what they mean by turn the other cheek. I think we can all agree with that. I mean, the whole idea was that in ancient culture, your left hand was the evil hand, and that your right hand was the good hand. So what Jesus was saying when he says turn the other cheek, he was actually dissing the guy that slapped him the first time by saying, "Oh, you hit me with your evil hand," as like a slave would be or a master would be speaking to a slave, somebody lower than them. So what you're doing is when you say turn the other cheek, you're telling him to hit you with your right hand and your good hand, which equates to hitting an equal to you. The whole point of turn the other cheek is to like step up and make your enemy psychologically damaged by what you're bringing them. And when you're talking about evil, when you're talking about sin, when you're talking about vice, when you have those three things, and Jesus Christ, you go up to your enemy and turn the other cheek to him, it's like, treat me as an equal because I'm going to beat you.
Jesse, I want to bring up your fighting career a lot because, Joe and I have seen some of your fights, and
you got mad hands.
You are a
mad hands.
And you threw punches and bunches. You what was your weight class, first of all?
Middleweight. I fought 165 for 10 years, boxing and full contact karate. I just, I was very disciplined in my eating and my diet and workouts for about 10 years. Yeah.
Okay, so were you a mid-range fighter? It looks like I saw your inside game and it looked pretty nice. So, I'm going to throw that out there. I wouldn't want to be in like a phone booth with you because you got hands, throwing them uppercuts and stuff. But what was your style? Were you primarily an outsider?
I could fight on the inside, but I felt more comfortable in long range. Yeah, because I have long arms. I'm only 5'10", but I have long arms for a middleweight and long legs. I got a short upper body, but I got long appendages. And boy, oh boy, it sure helped in the ring because when I would punch left or right, when both of us would throw a right cross, because I have long monkey arms, I would crack the guy before he would reach me. He'd be about a half an inch away or an inch away because of my long monkey arms. So I preferred the long game. But I could fight on the inside as well.
Well, I was going to say one of the things I noticed is that every time you were throwing in a punch at your opponent, those had some mustard on them. I got to say, I was watching you hit it. I'm just watching sweat like right off of their foreheads every time they got cracked.
And by the way, remember this. I fought amateur for 10 years, so most of the fights were headgear and 14-ounce gloves. I knocked out half of the guys with headgear and 14-ounce gloves. You know how hard that is to do? And yet, 50% of my fights I won by knockout with a person that had a headgear and 14-ounce gloves. So what? Yeah, if I would have had 8-ounce gloves and no headgear, I would have ripped people's heads off.
That's what I was just immediately thinking. That it's like what gave you that passion when you're throwing your punch? Just to add that, because most people, they're punching at 100% and they're doing it right. But I can see by the way that you're punching that you had intent behind that. Where do you draw that extra 110% to give that 110% punch to the face? I gotta know. I did punch. I knew how to turn on the switch. I've always been a fairly friendly guy, amicable, get along with everybody. But I knew how to turn on the switch when I went into the ring. It's that dark side that we all have, that concupiscence, the disordered passions. I knew how to turn it on. And then once I won, I knew how to turn it off. And I'd get back out of the ring. I'm talking about Jesus. I was a gentleman making the sign of the cross. But I knew how to flip the switch real good when I heard the bell ring. Now,
Well,
did you when you turned on the switch? I'm just curious. When you turned on the switch, are you turning? Is it just I'm going into the ring and it's on for the entire fight, or is it like I'm calm, and then I'm about to throw a punch and it's like switch on? I'm just.
It was at this point in my mind is losing is not an option. Losing's not an option. I must throw more punches, just mathematically to win, more punches, or if it's kickboxing, more punches and kicks than my opponent. I want to overwhelm him, not underwhelm him. So just like Dave said, punches and bunches. That's exactly what I thought. I would say, if he throws one punch, I'm going to throw two. If he throws two, I'm going to throw four. If he throws one kick, I'm going to throw two. And so I was always thinking, defeat is not an option, losing is not an option, and I'm gonna overwhelm this guy, basically just on a punch and kick. I'm gonna outdo him 2-1. So again, because I knew I trained hard. I had a serious training program for a high-level amateur fighter. They wanted me to turn pro. I had a lot of scouts. In fact, I'll be honest with you, I was asked, maybe, we all have regrets. People have regrets. I was asked in 1987, I was asked by the U.S. Olympic team. They came to watch one of my fights at a huge boxing tournament in Southern California, and I just smoked everybody. I just ripped through her. And Southern California is like the boxing capital of the U.S.
Right.
Okay? And so the U.S. Olympic team was on ringside. They came up to me. They said, Jesse Romero? I said, yes, sir. I am Coach so-and-so. He gave me his card, U.S. Olympic coach, Colorado Springs, Colorado. You know who you just beat right there? I said, yeah, I kind of know who you. They go, you just beat right now the world middleweight armed forces champion, Marine, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, Army. Wow. This guy you just beat is a Marine. He's on the traveling Marine boxing team, and he's going to Colorado Springs in 3 months to try for the Olympic trials. You just beat him. We like to see you in Colorado Springs because you have a chance to make the team.
Wow. So you just kind of had it, right? I mean, I know you trained hard, Jesse, but, they say that punchers are born, not made. I mean, you must have, you had what it takes. You had the grit,
yeah,
you had the fast twitch muscles.
Yeah. I think I did, Dave. But again, even though I think I had what it took, I did train hard. And so whatever talent God gave me, I definitely put a lot of time in the gym. As they say in the streets, I put in the work.
Well, you had a chin too. That's the thing. You can train. You can even train punching power. You can't become Deontay Wilder if you're not born like Deontay Wilder. But you can train it. Something that really can't be trained is just an iron chin, right? Like not getting even really buckled in a fight, let alone like keeled over, put on your back, or bowled over. You were never put down, were you, in a fight?
No, I never. On 64 fights, I was never knocked on my butt. I never took a standing 8 count. So people say, "Hey, so how does it feel to be knocked out? You boxed for 10 years and did kickboxing. I said, I don't know. Ask the other guy. I really don't know. I got hurt more in the gym training than I did in actual competition. I got buckled in the gym, a few times. I've never been dropped in the gym, but I got buckled in the gym. And but on competition, by the grace of God, I never did. I had a good chin, and more than that, I wasn't one of those guys that walk through punches. I don't like to block with my face like a lot of Mexican fighters. I fought more like a black fighter. Black fighters don't like to get hit. They're very mobile on their feet, and they're very elusive with their head. I had kind of the Mexican offense, go, overwhelm them with punches and just mow them down. But then I had also the black defense. I was light on my feet, and I was very mobile with my head. I wouldn't. I remember Bruce Lee years ago in a movie. He just said it's hard to hit a moving target. So, whether I was boxing or kickboxing, I always make sure that my head was moving, move. So if I took a punch, it was not going to hit me flush. It was going to just kind of rip, scrape by me.
Did you like Philly shell, or what was your style? I know there's a lot of different defenses out there that people do, depending on, first of all, their build. Some guys that are shorter might do like a peekaboo or something, but I don't know how conventional your defense was. I
was hard to hit. If you watch my videos, I hardly ever got hit. Again, I can't. Probably it's only about 5 or 6 times I could say I got cracked hard. Like I felt like I got hit with a, with a bowling ball. But probably only a half a dozen times in 64 fights, I was just hard to hit.
Wow. Yeah. Man, I mean, it would be so good for some of the men out there, some of the Catholic men, some of the rising Catholic men especially, because you go to, a Newmanless school, you go to like Franciscan University, Ave Maria, and, you'll see on social media some of these guys posting pictures like, oh, we're in front of an abortion clinic and we're praying and all this stuff, and it just looks like skinny guys who have never touched a weight, and it's great. They have the spirit, right? They have the prayer life. They've got that, and that takes a certain level of discipline. But it's like, I don't know if I want them in my foxhole when things get bad, because it seems like no matter how, I'm not even saying they'd flee. I'm not calling these guys cowards. I don't think they are. Yeah. But it's like, if things hit the fan, and we've seen in world events that things can hit the fan. Like a couple weeks ago, you were just chilling in Ukraine, like playing Nintendo or shooting hoops or something, and things were cool. And now, obviously, you get invaded, and they're being like all males 16 and up. You actually have to stay and fight for your country. And that's not that far-fetched. We've been in this Pax Americana for so long that it's like, oh, we're never going to have to fight. We're never going to have to do anything with our hands. Most guys can't even pull anything out around their house and fix it. They look down on it, some of them. I'm the 120-pound weaklings that can't bench the bar. That doesn't inspire confidence in me. If I'm going to go to a counter protest with them or some protest with them, march on the streets with them, that if stuff does go down, and Antifa is being bussed in, it is being financed by like the George Soroses of the world. If we do get rushed, it's not that I think these guys are going to flee. It's just that I think they're going to get whooped, and then I'm going to get curb stomped by 12 Antifa.
I don't know, Dave. I mean, I don't even agree with you. I honestly think a lot of them would flee. I think a lot of us are really, really comfortable in America, specifically the younger people, with going out and protesting under the under this understanding that nothing's ever going to go wrong. It wasn't until fairly recently with the Antifa violence that all of this stuff even began. I mean, it all started really at like UC Berkeley, where you had these right-wing guys that are actually built up dudes that are from some of America's poorest suburbs, some of the poorest areas in the city that actually know how to fight, that Antifa ever even met a challenge out there before. It was just bullying before, and conservatives were always on the retreat. The ones in front of abortion clinics, if they were being attacked, and many times they were, I've seen many videos, what do they do but say, we're going to call the police? I was like, you just kicked somebody in the face. I'm going to knock your face off. That's it. I'm gonna kick you so hard it's gonna hit the back of your face. You know what I mean? Like, come on. I don't know, Jesse. What do you think about all this? I just don't see it in these people. I don't see that energy. I don't see the fire. I don't see the intensity. It's just not there.
You're gonna like this story. My brother Johnny, who's about 5 years younger than I am, he's a former Marine, blue collar guy who lives in Southern California, works for the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power city worker. Got a half a dozen kids. He's a zealous Catholic. He's a hardcore pro-lifer. Teaches RCIA at his parish. So he's getting off of work. Okay, lunch pail guy. Working with a jackhammer all day. Busting cement. Homeless people all around him. So he's driving home on the busy 5 freeway, which Dave knows what that freeway is all about.
Yeah. Yeah, spent a lot of time.
And so my brother Johnny gets a call from a fellow Catholic, Laura Chavez. She's a very prominent pro-life organizer there in Southern California. So she calls them up. Johnny, there's the 100 guys from Black Lives Matter and Antifa that are going over to the San Fernando Mission Park to tear down the statue of Saint Junipero Serra. So my brother Johnny's driving home, long after work, and so he calls up his wife. He says, "Honey," he says, "don't make dinner. I'm going to be a little bit late. I'm going to the park. I'm going to stop these guys from tearing down the statue." Now my brother Johnny, later I said, "Dude, are you kidding me? You're going to go by yourself?" So my brother Johnny doesn't go home. He goes to San Fernando Mission Park, which is across from the San Fernando Mission, one of the 21 missions in California. My brother, he sees 6 guys in front of the Saint Junipero Serra statue. He runs over there, and they stand in front of the statue. All of a sudden, all these cars are coming, and they park. About 100 BLM guys and Antifa guys get off with crowbars and chains and pipes, and they're walking towards my brother Johnny and 6 other Catholic guys that he just met. He just met right there, and they're shaking hands. And my brother Johnny says, "Okay." He says, we got to stick together. Don't separate. He says, "Let's get hip to hip, shoulder to shoulder." He says, "Put your left foot forward, your right hand back, like in a self-defense position." My brother Johnny's also a kickboxer. And so he said, "Put your left foot forward, your right hand back, put your chin down, and let these guys see, like, okay, these guys are 7. These guys know what they're doing." These 100 Antifa Black Lives Matter guys with chains and pipes surrounded them. Now, these guys also were praying the rosary verbally. Our Father, but they're like they're in a self-defense position. "Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come." So they're praying, but Johnny said, "Left leg forward, right leg back, hands up, hands up. Let's get shoulder to shoulder, hip to hip." They stood there, and these guys were cussing them out. "We're gonna kill you, move out of the way." Johnny says, You ain't gonna get past us. You ain't getting, hey, put your crow, you ain't getting past us. "Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners." The police finally get there after about this 30-minute standoff, and the police get in between my brother Johnny and these 6 Catholic guys and the 100 Antifa guys, and the police say, "Hey, you guys," the police tell my brother Johnny, "You guys are outnumbered. Why don't we just let them tear down the statue?" Johnny said, "No. It's not negotiable, officer." He says, if you guys don't want to stay here and defend us and this, then you're fine. You can leave. We're gonna stay here. They're not tearing down the statue." The cop said, okay, we'll stay here. We'll make sure they don't do anything." So the Antifa guys ended up leaving because the cops stood there in between. But my brother Johnny, he's the one that held the line and told the cops to hold the line. Now I talked to him later. I said, "Dude, are you crazy? Bro, you got half a dozen kids at home and you're out there. You're not a young man no more. You're like 51, 52. I said, Johnny goes, "It's muscle memory." He goes, "I'm a Marine. I'm a fighter." He says, he goes, and grace builds upon nature. He goes, "I'm not going to let these guys tear down the statue on my watch." I said, "Dude, they could have killed you easy." He goes, "It is what it is. Everybody has to go." He goes, "I'm in a state of grace, so I'm ready." And so again, that's that sheepdog mentality that we need more Catholic men to have that mentality, because there's 3 types of men: wolves, sheep, and sheepdogs. Wolves are bad, wicked, evil men. Sheep are sissies, effeminate, beta men. And then you have sheepdogs, men that are leaders, protectors, and providers spiritually and physically.
You know what? You know what? That is it. While I was listening to this story, like that just brought about this like epiphany. Your brother turned regular, normal people who may have never even been in a fight in their life into warriors in a matter of 10 minutes. So that's what it is. We need leadership. These young guys out here, they need leadership. And yes, obviously they do need to actually go out and learn how to fight. Excuse me. They need to be able to go out and learn how to fight. They need to be able to defend themselves. They need to be able to become the leaders that these people are going to be for them initially. But we need that initial leadership first. If no one's going to go out there and step up to these guys and say, "We're going to go toe to toe and we're going to knock your block off if you come near us. We're going to have you creased over sideways on the sidewalk if you don't stop messing with it." I'm just saying, That, like, if we don't have people like that out there that are intimidating, that are virile, that are just crazy enough to stand up for something, for goodness sakes, I mean, we're just going to be standing there like sissies, getting our phones kicked out of our hands, getting whacked with clubs, getting eggs thrown at us. You know what? Where's the try me mentality at, Jesse? Where is it?
We also need just numbers. That's the thing. Even if we have, now, of course, your bro and like 6 guys stood down a mob, and that's exemplary. That's great. But we also need, that's not always going to be able to happen. You know, if you're 6 on 100, I don't like my odds. It can't just be like, you know, there's 10 Catholic guys in each town that actually can, you know, bench press like 200 and something pounds and squat like 200 and something pounds, just like normal man stats, and have some reflexes, and, you know, are willing and able to take a punch without just buckling over and being creased on the sidewalk. You need numbers, and we don't have that. A lot of these times, it's so frustrating that you look at what was happening when all these statues were getting pulled down, when all these Antifa and BLM protests were happening, and it was like old Catholic women standing around a statue praying a rosary, and it's like, where are your husbands? What kind of a sissy wuss panty waist sends his wife out to a protest to protect a statue, to stand there and stare down the scum of the planet who are intent on doing violence to people on the right, but also like our iconography? Who does that? We just don't, even though we have a few guys, but we don't have the numbers. This needs to be not just like 3 dudes talking right now on a podcast. There need to be like thousands of men that are like, oh man, yeah, that's right. I'm really passionate about the faith, but I'm a student at like Franciscan or Ave Maria, and I better hit the weights. I better look like I wouldn't get blown away with the wind. You know, here's a secret. At least if you're not tough, look tough. You know, be able to, don't look like you're so wimpy. All these guys are concave chested. It seems like, you know, if you push them, they'd fly 5 feet. Just look tough, and that's actually a real thing, like in the military. Just intimidation, basic animal psychology. Like, people are going to be less apt to hit you if you're 6'2", 220 than if you're like, you know, well, 6'2", 120 for one, you know? And that's how a lot of these guys look. It's like, okay, you can't, you know, you might be young, you can't do anything about like the acne and stuff, but like, can you please look like less of a dang goober?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, Jesse, like I know you had like a, you know, like a terrific record when you were a fighter. I know you had like all these people looking at you as a fighter and stuff. It's just, this is something that I've noticed, and I'm just curious if you do or not. It seems to me like this, the Church of Nice that started, you know, probably like the 1970s, really started like picking up steam in the United States of America. It really seems like as that crept in, as that took over, as the peace and love dogma just, you know, got shoved down everybody's throats for decades on end, we eventually got to this point where we're at today, where the only people that could even possibly be interested in the faith, that could be in Catholicism because of who they filled up the churches with, are these, you know, doughy, you know, weak, constipated men that are more interested in reading the books than actually fighting the battles the books write about. Have you noticed this?
Yeah, that's a good analogy. And again, I just think that it's grace builds upon nature. St. Thomas Aquinas says, to a good bodily constitution corresponds the nobility of the soul. In other words, again, one complements the other. It's not either or, it's both and. I think we have to work on both areas, the intellect and the physical. I'll tell you where I think my sheepdog training came from. It came when I was 8 years old. We went to Holy Mass on Sunday, Santa Rosa Catholic Church in San Fernando. My 4 brothers, my sister, my mom and dad. And my mom had just won a raffle ticket, and the prize was a free dinner at a Mexican restaurant called Sierra's Mexican Restaurant. So we'd never been to a restaurant before. I mean, we sometimes we'd go to McDonald's or Jack in the Box. We never went to a sit-down restaurant as a family. First time we're in there, and I'm seeing like, wow, there's waiters, and there's, look at the dim lights and the cat. Well, this is beautiful. This is the way some people, this is the way some people live. I never seen a restaurant in my life up until the age of 8. And so that memory was burned in my heart. This was after Mass. My dad was an usher. My mom and dad would I would see them praying, receiving Holy Communion, singing the antiphons, doxologies. So we go to this restaurant. We sit down. There's mariachi music, dim lights, waiters, candles. Again, the only place we'd ever gone to was McDonald's and Jack in the Box every now and then. We'd never been to a sit-down restaurant. We were in the restaurant. My dad led us in grace before meals, as he always did at home. And we ate. We had a great time. Now, we're leaving the restaurant, and my dad said, hey, there's the back door where we can get to the car faster through this alley. So as we go through the alley, the back door of the restaurant, again, I'm 8, 9 years old. We walk out, and I see there's a guy in a car, big hulking guy, and you can see a woman is in the car screaming. She's on her back. The alley's kind of dark. It's already, sunset. And she's kicking the windows. You could see she's trying to break the windows. She's screaming, help me, get off me, help me. And she's kicking the windows violently. And I mean, anybody's big to an 8-year-old. He looked like a big guy. My dad was a pretty big guy. My dad was like 6 foot, 210. Pretty big guy, pretty big Mexican guy. He was a burly construction worker. I saw my dad take off his jacket, take off his tie, roll up his sleeves. So I'm like, what's going on here? My dad told my mom, go back inside, call the San Fernando Police Department and tell them that a woman's being attacked in the back alley of Sierra's restaurant. And so the 4 boys, my mom said, let's go in the restaurant. The 4 boys, we're staying here with Dad. We stood to watch Dad. My sister ran in the restaurant with my mom. Again, my dad was about 5'11", 6 foot, 215 pounds, pretty solid construction worker. That attacker was considerably bigger. He was a rapist. So he was bigger. Probably, if my dad was 6 foot, this guy's probably 6'2", 6'3", probably about 230, 240, pretty big guy. So we see my dad open the back door. He jumped on the back of the attacker, tried to pull him off. The guy was considerably bigger than my dad, and my dad was pretty big. I saw my dad yelling at him to let her go, and my dad started just clocking him behind the head. My dad is just cracking him, just piston-like behind the get to get him to loosen his grip on the female, that he's on top of it, and when the door opens, we see half her clothes is ripped off. Now, I didn't know what rape was. I'm an 8-year-old, but I knew that was an act of violence. My dad softened this guy up with punches in the back of the head. Then my dad put him in a rear chokehold and just yanked him out of the car in a rear chokehold. The police pulled up, okay, and my dad has this guy in a chokehold. The police surround the car. The lady starts grabbing some of her clothes, trying to cover herself, saying, officer, he just saved my life. That man just saved my life. That man was trying to rape me. That man just saved my life. My dad had the guy. The police said, let him go. My dad let him go. The police grabbed him, cuffed him, put him in the back of the car. They asked the lady, and this gentleman, what's he doing? He helped me. He was coming out of the restaurant with his family, and he saw this guy attacking me and raping me, and he came and pulled him off me. The police department, the San Fernando Police Department, thanked my father. And they did a once and warrants on the guy. They said, Mr. Romero, thank you very much. This guy here that almost raped this lady is a serial rapist. We've been looking for him for several years. I'm listening to all this conversation, me and my brothers. And so my mom and dad, my sister came out. We left. We went back to the car. And I was like, wow. I told my dad, weren't you afraid? That guy was bigger than you. My dad said, he goes, son, we just came from Mass. He says, I have God in here. He doesn't. He goes, I have nothing to be afraid of. I'll never forget that, because that to me, I'm 8 years old, and my dad connected the Catholic faith, living the faith, praying, receiving the sacraments, doesn't negate the fact that you can show courage and fortitude. In fact, it's complementary. My dad said the reason he wasn't afraid, he goes, I have God inside of me. He doesn't. I never forgot that. That was my first lesson in what I would call sheepdog training. And so on that day, Superman and Batman and Spider-Man, it wasn't any Marvel Avenger that became my hero. I saw my dad as a hero because he was a practicing Catholic, and I saw that. I would see him and my mom praying the rosary often in the evening together. And so when I saw my dad do that, I said in my mind, my little 8-year-old mind, I'm saying, to be a Catholic requires courage.
Dang. Yeah, wow, that's profound. Like, now I just feel like my adrenaline coursing because of your story. I just want to go find a rapist and beat him. You know, I feel like such a sissy for having never punched out a rapist before. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I feel like less of a man for having heard that story. Like, I'm just sitting here like, stupid.
You know what, Gordo? You know what? We're going to 8 Mile right after this. I'm going to come pick you up. We're finding ourselves a rapist, and we're going to beat the crap out. I'm kidding.
You mean the guy on the couch in the middle of the street drinking 40s at like 6 on a Tuesday? That happened, by the way.
That did happen when we were going to
Kronk Gym. You know Kronk Gym, Jesse.
Hey, by the way, you know what I call the guy, the team at Evening News? I dubbed the term for them. I told Michael, I said the 4 youngsters you got with you are called the Fantastic Four. So Michael's actually said, he goes, hey, this is Michael Morris with the Fantastic Four. That's what Jesse called them.
Which one's the Thing?
You pick. You tell me.
Oh, I have my pick on who the Thing is.
Okay.
Jesse, have you doled out street justice before? Again, everything's going to pale in comparison to what you just told us about your dad. But,
you got to have your street fight story. There's got to be something.
I'll tell you a story that, again, just kind of the sheepdog training that I think I was about 13 years old. I was hanging out with George Lopez, the comedian. I knew him well. We grew up. We played baseball together, and we were playing at San Fernando Park. Just kind of 6 guys from the neighborhood took a baseball, a glove, and we were just playing a 3-on-3. That park back in the 70s and the 80s. There was always tension between blacks and Hispanics. And so when there was more Hispanics there at the park, we basically took over the baseball field. When there was more blacks, they took over the baseball field. And it went back and forth. So here I am with George Lopez and 5 other guys from the neighborhood playing 3-on-3. All of a sudden we see across the bridge about 10 to 12 young black guys coming towards us with baseball bats and a glove. There's 6 of us. So the guys said, oh, man, they're going to throw us off the field. It went back and forth like this for years and years. And I told the guys, hey, guys, let's stand our ground. There's 6 of us. There's only 10 of them or 10 or 11. Let's stand our ground. I said, they're going to have to wait till we're done, then they get out of the field. Let's not punk out. All right, man, let's stand our ground. So the young black guys came around us. Hey, get off the field. No, wait, we're playing. You guys can wait. We'll be done in about 20, 30 minutes. Get off the field right now. No, we're not getting off. You guys have to wait. So they told me, really? You guys have to wait? Who's going to make us? So I'm saying, we are. So I look behind me. All 5 guys are running away. I can just see their heels.
Oh, no!
I'm looking at their heels and their backs. And I'm like, at this point, I said, okay, I could run with them. But I was so upset. At this point, I said, I'm going to get the crap beat out of me, but I don't even care no more. It's just the principle. I'm sick and tired of when we get outnumbered, we have to get off the field. Then when we outnumber them, we throw them out. I was sick and tired. I said, you know what? It's just the principle. We were here first. I'm not getting off. Okay? Again, I wasn't thinking intellectually. I was thinking more emotionally. So they said, "Oh, you ain't getting off the field." I said, "No, I'm not getting off the field." They go, "All right." Two black guys. We're bringing about my age, 13 years old. On each side, they had bicycle chains. Kind of the leader said, "Hit them." So I saw from left and right, they started taking turns, just like when I watched The Passion for the first time in 2004. I had PTSD. It took me right back to San Fernando Park at 13 years old. They started whacking me one, then the other one. I was already taking karate. I was young and wiry. I said, "Oh, I can't let this chain hit my face. It's going to wrap around my face. It's going to rip my face." So I would block it. It would wrap around my arm. They'd pull it, and I didn't care about the skin on my arm. Then the other guy, I block it, wrap around my arm. They were taking turns, and I was blocking it with my arm and just covering my chin. I didn't want to let it hit my face. And now I collapsed to one knee under the weight of the blows, but it wasn't hitting me in the back. I was stopping, and my arms were bloody, my shoulders were bloody. About 40 yards away was a public swimming pool. Saw a big old white kid, college kid, man. I mean, just yoked out, like 210 pounds, pectoralis majors. I mean, all buffed out, man. 20-inch guns. He's a lifeguard. He goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" He runs out of the front door of the public swimming pool, runs at those 10 young black kids, and they just turned around and they beat feet. Man, they were gone. He came up to me. "Hey, you okay, young man? You okay?" Yeah, yes, sir. Thank you so much." I was never so happy to see a buffed out white kid in my life, man.
Yeah, you're going to catch up.
Oh, yeah. This guy picked me up, walked me into the locker room at the San Fernando public swimming pool, started washing my face with the towels, washing my arms. "You okay? You okay?" This guy was a guardian angel, because I'm telling you, I was so pig-headed, I wasn't going to leave. They were going to beat me to a bloody pulp. But God put in this guy's heart courage. Man, he just ran out of there, and he chased all those young black guys just like cockroaches, man. They split. They saw this big old buffed out white dude, man. They wanted no part of him. And so that's kind of a story that, for me, it just it goes to show you that sometimes following your emotions, your lower passions, instead of your intellect, saying, "You know what? We're outnumbered. Maybe I should run with George Lopez and these other guys." Obviously, I didn't talk to these guys for days. They called me up. "Hey, you okay? You okay?" I just hung up on them. These guys called me up. Hey, you okay? I didn't talk to them for weeks. So yeah, that's another story of what I call life lessons. When you're outnumbered, maybe you should just beat feet. I don't know.
Well, that is one thing that needs to be just thrown out there. Like, there is a right to self-defense, and even prize fighting. Moralists say, I've got Herbert Jonet right here, and he says that prize fighting is not inherently disordered, and that, back when he was writing, the rules were a lot more loosey-goosey, so he's like, the rules should be, maybe reformed, but there's nothing necessarily wrong with being a professional fighter, let alone self-defense. And you have a lot of people out there today where we have such this, it's not piety, it's pietism, where people just hear anything vaguely interesting, remotely interesting, something that is virile, something that's manly, something that really involves the body. And we're really in this world of like Gnostic dualism, where like the body is bad. People like turn up their noses at people who do sports. "Oh, you're interested in sports? You don't just sit around and read Lives of the Saints all day." That's where we're at. So people assume like, "Oh, you you might not even be able to defend yourself. You just have to let people kind of walk all over you. That's what it means to be a Christian. You have to let people intimidate you and stare you down, and you got to be the bigger person and just walk away. You walk away. If somebody breaks into your house, you retreat. If somebody's coming at you, you have a duty to retreat. That's not right. You can defend yourself. There is a right to self-defense. Any moralist talks about it. The Catechism talks about it. And there is something beautiful in learning to fight, learning to use your hands, learning to do these rugged, manly things. And you know why prize fighting is so, even though it risks life and limb, it's an inherently dangerous profession. You're maybe parting somebody, albeit briefly, from their consciousness. You know why it's imminently defensible? It's because it's preparing you as a man for combat, preparing you as a man for war. And every man in the world has to be prepared for combat, has to be able to throw down, has to be able to go to war. And even if you're just a spectator at these events, you have to learn fighting somewhere. These people are taking the art to the next level. They're refining their discipline, and people, by watching them, are learning techniques. And the only way to learn to fight is to spar. You can't just go to a gym and hit a heavy bag, can you, Jesse? You have to actually get in the ring and throw fists in order to learn to fight. And at the professional level, it's just people fighting at the highest level. So they're also, in addition to earning a paycheck, they're also bringing the art of fisticuffs to a higher level, and they're imparting that to new generations, and they're actually standing out as role models like Rocky Marciano, even Tyson Fury, another Catholic heavyweight champ, the current heavyweight champ. They're something that Catholic boys can look up to and be like, this is a tough guy. There's something respectable about this. Can you just, Jesse, real fast, can you get into, for some people who might not be accustomed to, the boxing world, they might not be a fan, they might not know, can you go into a gym and just hit a heavy bag or a speed bag and come away a decent fighter for people who might have mental reservations right now?
Well, that's better than not doing so. In other words, that's better than being a couch potato, but it's like anything. If you want to be good at baseball or track or football, you just can't, do it on a computer and do it on a screen. You got to get out in the gridiron and you got to actually do it. It's just going to make you better. So punching the bag is good, and doing like boxercise and kickboxercise, that's all good. But there's nothing like actually pitting yourself against another person, because that's going to sharpen up your skills. That's what the Spartans used to do in the Roman and the Roman soldiers called the legionaries. They used to spar in the courtyard in between battles with wooden swords, and they would put pads on their hands and box in the courtyard. You have to go hands-on sometimes. And again, we're not called to be pacifists in the Catholic Church. Pacifism, we're not called to be doormats. Again, the Catechism is very clear about the doctrine of self-defense in paragraph 2263. If you look at, for example, our military, a third of the military right now, they're baptized Catholics with Catholic dog tags. They get trained on self-defense. They get trained on weapons. The Catholic Church even has a patron saint of shooters. He's called Saint Gabriel Possenti, patron saint of shooters. Think about the Catholic fighters in the Middle Ages, the Crusaders. If it wasn't for these brave men for 800 years that fought in 8 wars, this voluntary army, hand to hand, sword to sword, arrow to arrow, if it wasn't for these men during the Crusades, the entire world would be Muslim today, and we would be having a Muslim podcast right now and bowing 5 times a day to Mecca with our face to the ground and our butt to the air. You also have, again, people like Saint Joan of Arc. Saint Joan of Arc, who took up arms in the defense of France. You got Saint Nicholas, the great bishop in the 4th century, who punched the heretic Arius of Alexandria in the face at the Council of Nicaea for talking poop about the Lord Jesus Christ. And so again, even our Lord Jesus Christ had a lot of respect for you. You know who Jesus had the most respect for? Soldiers. He said about the centurion, I've never seen a person like whose faith has faith like this centurion in all of Israel. Our Lord even tells the apostles in Luke 22:36, he says, let him who has no sword sell his cloak and buy one. In Luke 22:36. Well, why do people carry swords? Read Romans chapter 13, verse 1-8. A soldier is God's servant for your good, but if you do wrong, be afraid of him, because he does not carry a sword for looks. He carries a sword to execute God's wrath on the evildoers. So when you look again, David killed 10,000 men, 10,001 Goliath. Where's David at right now? Hebrews chapter 11 tells us he's in heaven. Moses gave a UFC chokehold to an Egyptian guard who was beaten up on a Hebrew slave. Moses killed him. Okay, the doctrine of self-defense, trying to defend somebody else who was getting beat up. Where's Moses at today? In heaven. You have Moses also had he had a group of men called the mighty men of valor. Joshua, Caleb. These were men. You know, they looked over across to the promised land, and people are saying, hey, don't go over there. There's a bunch of giants over there. Joshua and Caleb says, bring it on, man. Those are the odds we like. Oh, we're outnumbered and these guys are giants? Yeah, we're going to take the land. This is the type of example we have from the Old and New Testament and from Catholic tradition.
Joe, how do we get that back?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, one of the things that I think is the most important thing, especially after hearing Jesse's story. I mean, that actually changed my mind, because I was in the mode of like, I don't really know, man. Like, we need to fundamentally change everything we do about everything in the Catholic Church and figure out a way to draw different men in, because these other men are hopeless. Now, I actually don't think that anymore. I think what it sounds like we need trainers. And I don't mean trainers of, simply the spirit. I'm not talking about only spiritual shepherds. I'm talking about shepherds of combat. I'm talking about, learning how to fight, learning how to stand your ground, maybe even classes on the art of intimidation, where you don't just go up to somebody that's in your face and say, oh, that's assault. Oh, I'm going to call the police. What you should be saying is, I'm going to literally rip your arms off and beat you to death with them if you don't get out of my face. That sort of stuff. Learn how to talk to people. Learn how to be a threat. That's what we need training in. If we can give men that sort of message, if we can give them that sort of inspiration, I think it won't even matter if they're small. If they got the mouth to back it up, if they got the leadership to back it up, they're going to be able to, fundamentally fight for the faith far more efficiently than they are now.
That's easier said than done, though.
It is. No,
Have you seen the guys that go to Newman-less schools? I would walk around Franciscan and be guys with, like, what would Jesus do anklets? That's not okay. That's just... the calf, kind of goes in. Like, there's just no calf muscle. And it's like, I don't even know how you get that build if you walk. But you would see a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, look, maybe the start's hit up the weight room. Maybe the start is like, hit up the weight room, get at least 20 pounds heavier than you are right now, or 20 pounds lighter if you're fat. Whichever it is, do whatever you got to do to get yourself in a moderate amount of shape. And guess what? Then follow somebody that knows what they're doing. So follow somebody that, you know what you should do? You should find somebody that you like, that you're also mildly afraid of. And maybe you should follow him, look at his lead, follow his lead in the future when you're dealing with other people that are trying to, like you said, dealing with the wolves, Jesse, dealing with the wolves out there. Because you know what? If we're going to be Christians and we can't even face down the wolves, what's going to happen? We're going to get eaten.
Yeah. Amen. Yep. Well said.
All right, guys. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think that puts a bow on it. Neat, tidy little package. Thank you for coming on, Jesse. It's always great to talk to you.
Thank you, Jesse.
You always have, dude, you've got, the best stories I have ever heard in my life. Every time we're together, you spin me a new yarn that leaves me feeling, completely inadequate with, a milquetoast life. I haven't even ripped anyone's heads off with my bare hands yet. So, I'm not...
Where else are you going to hear a story about getting beaten up by 4 black guys with bike chains while George Lopez is running away from you? Where else are you going to hear that?
Nowhere!
Well, thank you so much for being on with us. God bless you, Jesse, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Anytime. And I got some more guys. I'm gonna throw your way some Catholics that were fighters. Yeah, I'm gonna throw you guys some real red meat. I know some amazing guys that are. I'm gonna send you guys some Navy SEALs, some California bodybuilding champions, UFC fighters that are all hardcore Catholics. So yeah,
Dude, that'd be awesome.
Oh,
yeah,
amazing. Thank
I'm
you
gonna
so
feed you
much.
guys some good red meat.
Thank you
All right,
so
well,
much,
thank
Jesse.
you, Jesse, and
All right,
God
guys.
bless you.
Thanks. God bless you.
God bless.